Good morning. Good to be with you again this morning. We're going to go right into our prayer list this morning before Randy gets started. First of all, let's remember our seniors. Let's remember them that are shut in and not able to get out. Let's pray for them. Contact them when you get a chance. Also, Nancy and David Rogers, my mom and dad, remember them. Paul Brown, remember him and his wife. Larry Whitlock, Tracy Ralston, Linda, Julie's mother-in-law, remember her. Cindy Rector, remember brother and sister Raines this time too. Ronnie Ridgell, continue to pray for him. My sister-in-law Tammy Thomas had surgery on her foot, and just remember her. Continue to remember your pastor this time. Our church, Micah, Mason, remember them. I've got Hannah and our other missionaries. You want to remember them also. Continue to lift them up. In this pandemic, we want to, I guess, remember everybody here in our church and our friends and neighbors during this time. Our leaders of our country. Pray for them. We've got some that's lost their jobs right now. We want to lift them up, their families. And let's remember our lost. Those that you know that don't know Christ as their Savior. Let's remember them too. Okay, let's go, Lord, in prayer. Our Father in heaven, again, we thank you for your many blessings. Father, first of all, we want to thank you for what you've done for us on the cross. And Father, we come to you this morning, Father, we want to lift these up to you. These that's been mentioned, and Father, these that's not been mentioned, they're on our hearts, and you know each and every one. The pain that they're going through, the hurts, and Lord, I pray that you just be with them in a mighty way. Father, I pray that you would just be with these that are going to have tests. I pray that you be with them and their families, Lord. Just comfort them. Father, we pray for these that are serving, these doctors and nurses. Father, we pray that you just give them strength that they need. Lord, I pray that you'd be with Hannah and the other missionaries that are out there working. Father, spread your word. We also pray for our pastor. Lord, we just ask you to just bless him in a mighty way. Bless his family. And Father, I just ask that you just help us to do what you'd have us to during this time and be the Christians that you want us to be. Keep me humble and forgive me where I fail you. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, Dennis, for being here and doing those prayer requests. That keeps us up to date. We appreciate you so much. I failed to mention to Dennis earlier, we need to include the family of C.B. Thompson and his visitation and funeral services. And we've lost a legend of Rose City when we lose C.B. He's helped. There's no telling how many people he's helped, but most of all, he's exhibited the Christian faith his whole life. And what a testimony he has. We're moving along in the book of Revelation, and I've said before that these lessons are heavy, but they're heavy for a reason. And they're not only for us that are saved in the church to understand what's going to happen to us, but they're also for the lost to hear. And Revelation can be difficult to understand. But it ought to give us as Christians a mission to spread this gospel word more than we ever have, so that the lost don't have to go through what we've been talking about and what we'll continue to talk about for a little while longer during the Great Tribulation. We already know, as our lessons before, that the scroll was there, and the one and only person who can open the scroll is Jesus Christ, and it's the record that John has made for us of Jesus opening each one of those seals that were on the scroll. And with each seal, we've been delivered messages of, once again, the heavy messages that are in there about things that are going to happen. And we're going to move into Revelation chapter 8 and 9, and it specifically deals with the Great Tribulation. And I have no way to put into words what the earth is going to go through at that time. John is limited by his own time frame of when he's living and recording this, to using the language that he has to use, the knowledge of the world that he has in a way to try to explain it to us. And even in today's language, I can't describe it to you, how bad it's going to be, the horror of it, the devastation, the destruction, and the death that's going to take place during the Great Tribulation. Jesus himself in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, made a point of trying to describe what was going to be taking place at the end times. As if anybody knows, he knows. And let's go ahead and begin in chapter 8. We'll start with verse 1. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half an hour. Now, this silence that we're talking about here, there's kind of last week I used that chapter as a parenthesis, and I want to insert a parenthesis right here for just a few minutes. This silence, you've heard the phrase, the silence was deafening. You've been in those situations where all of a sudden it was the quiet was so loud, it made you sit up and pay attention, and you take notice of it. And I think that's what we're dealing with right here. Because of what is about to take place, there's a pause and there's a silence. It says here for about the space of half an hour. And with this silence, we're kind of waiting for the next shoe to fall. We're kind of waiting to see what the calm is here before this storm that's about to happen. I've been out there, and you have too, and you've been outside when a storm is looming, and the forecasters have said that it's on its way. And right before the storm gets here, a lot of times there's a quiet, a calm. And it almost is chilling. It almost makes it uneasy right before the storm hits. And I look at this the same way. Right before this desolation and destruction and death start, there's just a calm, quiet for a few minutes. And then John says in verse 2, I'll read verses 2, 6, and 7. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees was burned up, and all the grass was burned up. So John is in this vision, and he sees, he's given the privilege of seeing this vision, and he's recording it the best way he knows how. And he says this vision, these angels are there, and one angel, the first angel, blows the first trumpet. A hailstorm happens. Rain happens. And it says it's mingled with blood, death. All of this is an attack on the environment. All of a sudden we've got this coming out of the sky, and it's hitting the ground. And what do you think it's going to do when it hits the ground? It's going to destroy trees, shrubs, grass. Because it says in the 7th verse, and a third part of the trees was burnt up. You take away a third of the trees in the world, and where do we get our oxygen and carbon monoxide mixture from? The vegetation on the earth. And if a third of that is gone, what's that going to do to the atmosphere? When all the grass, a third of the grass is dying, a third of the trees are gone. The trees they're very important for us as humans. They're important for animal life. They're important for protection. I had family that lived in Kennett, Missouri, and you couldn't see a tree for 100 miles, all farmland, and the wind never stopped blowing. It never stopped. It dried things out. It made things almost unlivable at times, especially in the summertime. The trees are there for the protection. This first trumpet is sounded, and a third of that is taken away. A third of it. The trumpet blows because the trumpet was always used to get everybody's attention. It was used for a special announcement. It was always used as a warning sound. And this first trumpet blows. And here's what I'm thinking is going on. We got all these people that are still here left. And they don't understand. Hopefully some do by this time with the testimony of the 144,000 Jews. But the majority of the people that are here have got no idea what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and witnessing. No idea. And all of a sudden, a third of the trees was burned up and all the grass was burned up. When the grass is burned up, you think about all the animals that eat grass. You think of the cattle, horses, all those animals, even the animals in the woods that eat from the foliage of the trees and the grass. What's it going to do to them? You see, this starts affecting every part of the world, a little bit at a time. Excuse me. I want to jump back and touch on something else that I saw in this in Revelation chapter 8. Some verses that I didn't read. Revelation chapter 8, verses 3 through 6. Now listen to this. After this pause, and he saw the seven angels, and another angel in verse 3 came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Right in the middle of this, I want us to pay attention to this. This is just something that I picked up on. It means a lot to me. Right at the very beginning of this, and the trumpets are beginning to sound, and we've had that pause, the silence for a half an hour. He sees an angel with a dish, a golden dish full of incense. Now what you've got to do is you've got to take yourself back to the Old Testament times, and even in some of the New Testament times in the temple. When the priests would go in to offer up the prayers of the people, they did it through incense. So picture this priest taking this incense and pouring it over the altar, and that the smell and the fumes, you might say, from that incense are going straight up to God. That represents prayer. That's the prayers of the saints, as it mentions here in this book, and as it mentions in other books. That's the prayers of the saints going directly up to God. You see, even during this time that we're talking about here, prayer is important. Prayer is very important. There's going to be a lot of people who, at that time, are going to think, I don't feel like praying. Have you ever felt like not praying? Have you ever had those days, those afternoons, those mornings when you didn't feel like praying? We need to pray anyway. We need to take it to God in everything that we do. No matter how we actually feel, we need to talk to God about it. And we need to be honest with Him with our prayers. It's so very important to hear that even during this trying time, prayers show up with this incense. The first trumpet, we've already talked about that in chapter 7. There's a lot of these phrases and things that John recorded here. A lot of people have tried to make it to where, well, this is just symbolic. This is not necessarily exactly the way it's going to be. Well, yeah, it is symbolic. But it's also exactly the way it's going to be. The devastation upon the grass could speak of humanity and the peoples living on the earth. And all the grass was burned up in that verse. That could actually mean the people that are here could be represented by that grass. That's why it's so important to get that gospel message out and get it in the hands of people, in the hearts and minds of people to understand what's coming if they don't accept Jesus Christ as their Savior as soon as possible. The second trumpet. Excuse me. The second trumpet is a judgment upon the oceans and things that live in the sea. Revelation 8 through 9. Let's read that. And the second angel sounded as if it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And a third part of the sea became blood. And a third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And a third part of the ships were destroyed. This could be speaking of a literal volcano that erupts and falls into the sea, and you know what's going to happen when that happens. It's going to be all kinds of mist and smoke, and it's going to be poison that's going to be going into the waterways. And it says here that a third, not only did we have the first trumpet where the third of the trees and the grass burn up, now it's affecting the waterways. And when it affects the waterways, it affects the creatures that live in that water. You're going to lose that too. A third of that's going to be gone. This sea that he may be thinking about could have been the Mediterranean Sea. I don't know, but that's the sea that John would have been familiar with, especially those people that are living in that area and the Jews. The sea also could represent turmoil, just like the turmoil that's going on in that time and the turmoil that's going on right now. If there's an opportunity for there to be turmoil in the churches and in the world, it could be happening right now. With the pandemic, people are not meeting like we used to. There have been some government officials who are ready to close down churches permanently, to go that far. That's the kind of turmoil I'm talking about, but it doesn't compare with what's going to be happening here. In the Bible, mountains often speak of kingdoms. Kingdoms could fall, which is represented by that mountain falling into the ocean. If you'll remember, Babylon was considered a mountain of a kingdom. And we know by reading in the book of Daniel what happened to that kingdom. Waters, I mentioned that the waters could stand for turmoil. It could also stand for the wicked people and the restless people that are left here. They're so confused, they're running to and fro, and there's turmoil in their lives, just like the waters that crash together. They don't know which way to go. And all of this is happening, and they've got no explanation for it. Can you just imagine? I mean, there are things that happen today that I can't explain. I don't know how that happened, or I don't know why that happened. During this time, again, remember the church that has been raptured and the Christians that have been raptured are out of the picture. The 144,000 Jews are witnessing. Some are being led to Christ, but there's going to be a lot of other people who are still not going to pay attention to the Word. And the people that heard the Word before the rapture, they're stuck there. They're still not going to understand what's going on. And it is going to be like the churning of a sea, mass confusion. The third trumpet, Revelation 8, 10 and 11. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as if it were a lamp. And it fell into a third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star was called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Wormwood actually means bitter. Bitter waters, bitter taste, foul taste, sulfur smell. This that's going to happen at this trumpet, when it blows, it's going to start affecting the water that people drink. Satan, since the beginning of time, has been trying to affect the waters of the world. And what I mean by that is the people of the world. He's been trying to poison the people of the world from then until now. And basically what this is telling me is that he's going to start succeeding. That's the symbolism that we're talking about here. As well as, I really believe that the waters will be poisoned. A star falling from heaven could be an asteroid. We talked about asteroids falling and hitting the earth in some of our other chapters. And I believe that there will be those kinds of things happening during this time. And when it hits the water, it will contaminate and ruin fresh water. Another third of the world is affected. Is this not some things that should be getting some people's attention? These are environmental things that are happening. Things that we take for granted, things that these people that are living during this time are still going to be taken for granted. And all of a sudden, these things are going to be step by step, the plan of God, allowed to be destroyed and taken away. And because of each one of these things and affecting these different areas of the environment, people are dying. People are constantly dying. Going without water. The only thing I can draw on for that is when my mother was in hospice care and she stopped taking in water, those hospice workers who are miracle workers in themselves, they're called people, they knew approximately to almost to the day how long she would last without water. You think about that. How long will these people last? And it says that some will be poisoned by the water. Some is going to drink it anyway. Some will drink it anyway. You've read and you've seen the stories of the people who are stranded in the ocean and they go so long without water, they finally drink the ocean water. Something affects their mind and they don't care anymore. That's what's going on here. There's going to be so much destruction and death going on around these people. They're not going to really have the good sense anymore to do what's right. And they're going to drink this poison water. And again, the symbolism could, it not only just that the water, talking about water here, but it could be the people that are affected. Satan has been trying to poison the water of life forever. And finally, he is actually going to introduce that poison water into these people. And they're going to, like we said before, they're going to believe the lie. He's going to be allowed to win some of those people. The fourth trumpet. Again, we're still talking about the environment. This is the judgment upon the skies and the light that shines from heaven. Verses 12 through 13. And the fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a third part of the stars, as the third part of them was darkened. And the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. We have no idea what it would mean to live without light. And the symbolism that we've got here is, who is the light? Jesus is the light. We can't live without his everlasting light. Satan has always wanted darkness. He's always been represented by the darkness, and he's going to have his way here. It says a third of the light is going to be gone. And I'm not talking about just a third of one part of the light, a third of all light. The sun. We've seen the eclipses. They last reasonable amounts of time. We know what it looks like, and then it goes away. Folks, this is a time when the sun is going to be, a third of it is going to be gone. A third of the moon is going to be gone. A third of the stars is going to be gone. Life is going to get pretty dark pretty quickly. I talked to one of our church members in the last week or so, checking on some of them, and y'all know we've had a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy days around recently. And the first thing she told me was, I'm ready for the sun to shine. I need the vitamin C. I need the brightness. I need the hope that the sun's going to shine again. You think about that statement and apply it to what we just read. There is no more hope of light. It's gone forevermore. And again, we're talking about the environment, but these trumpets, these first few trumpets here, we know that the moon and the sun and the phases of the moon have an effect on storms. They have effect on ocean currents. They have effect on all kinds of things. And when that gets out of sync, it's out of sync. Nothing's right. It's not normal anymore. Normal life is out the window at this point. People are dying all around you because of things that have happened to the trees, the grass, the water, the oceans, the fresh water to drink. Now the light is affected. God is allowing Satan to have his day. He's allowing him to have his time. And if you think that's bad, we're going to finally get into this fifth trumpet. And I can't express to you how bad it's already becoming during the first trumpets. But let's just read the fifth trumpet, Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 through 4. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from the heaven unto the earth. And unto him was given the key to the bottomless pit. That's going to become very important here. Verse 2, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reasons of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. What we've got here, Satan is the star. This star that we're talking about that fell from heaven is actually talking about Satan. And Satan did fall. He's been here the whole time. But the end of verse 1, where it says that he was given the key to the bottomless pit. In the Greek, the bottomless pit was known as the abyss. We've been hearing as Christians about demons. We are not familiar with demons because we don't know that we've actually seen demons. We don't know that we've actually been affected by demons. Demons do exist. And those demons throughout time have been locked away in the bottomless pit, the abyss. You remember when Jesus told the demons to leave the man at the cemetery, and he sent them into the swine? Do you remember what those demons said to him, that they were legion? And please don't put us in the pit. They knew there was a pit, even then. And there's a pit that Satan has finally got the keys to. This is where it really gets bad. If you don't think it's bad enough, now Satan has the keys to open that bottomless pit and allow those demons to come out and wreak havoc on what's left of the earth. And it says that John in his thinking and during his time, he compared them to locusts. And locust swarms, especially during John's time, would sweep through the country, and there were so many of them they would actually blot out. They would look like smoke going across crops and across the desert. And at times there were so many of them and so thick that they would block out the light, like it says here. They look like smoke. They look like light. John is comparing that to how many demons are going to be let loose on the earth. And you'll notice it says they were given power. You see, right now they're under control. Right now God has total control over the demons, and he will actually have total control of them from now on. But he allows them to have a little bit of power to come out of that pit and start wreaking havoc. Verse 4, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth. What do locusts eat? They eat grass, they eat crops. Neither any green thing, neither any tree. They will absolutely come through and strip the landscape when they're in a swarm. He's telling us here that they're going to be allowed to sweep through and decimate mankind during this time, except for those who have the seal of God on their forehead. You remember those 144,000 Jews that are preaching the word of gospel, that 144,000 Pauls that I referred to last week, and the people that they've touched, and the people that they've affected, and the people who have been saved during the tribulation, and they were going to be given the seal of God. It says on their forehead. They can't touch those people. This swarm of demons can't touch those people. God has commanded it. The sixth trumpet, 13 through 16. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared an hour, a day, a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. Listen to this. It's verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. So not only has the bottomless pit been opened up, been unlocked, and this horde of demons are allowed to cut loose on the earth. When the sixth trumpet is sounded, John says that there's an army that will arise. 200 million people. That's what all that comes to. 200 million horsemen are standing and ready for battle. He calls it an army. They're going to be allowed to be let loose on the earth as well. You know, when I said early on that we can't understand the depth of the death that's going to happen here. This number, it says in verse 16, and the number of the army with horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. He's looking into the future, and he sees a 200 million man army ready to descend. We're going to have to find out in some later lessons exactly what happens with this 200 million man army. What I want to make sure of that everybody understands before we quit today is of all the things that have happened with the first 6 seals that were opened, it's bad enough. This 7th seal alone, to me, overshadows anything else that's happened thus far. You have the planet around you being destroyed and affected. And when that happens, it affects people. It affects the beasts of the world. The starvation, the death, the disease, that's all still going on. And then you have this demonic powers that are taking over. Let me just say a word here of caution. There have been a lot of movies. There have been a lot of people, some of you may live and die by your horoscope. There's been a lot of movies that have depicted demonic beings and demonic ways of life. The occult, witchcraft. Be very careful not to get sucked into those kind of things. That's the kind of demons we're talking about. The demons that are in control of those kinds of things, some of those are free and easy in the world right now. And we see a lot of it on our televisions and in our books and our movies, our TV shows. We see it on the streets. That still doesn't compare to what's going to be turned loose on the earth when the bottomless pit is open, and those demons are the worst of the worst. That's how they ended up in the abyss, the bottomless pit. Pay attention, parents. Pay attention, grandparents. Pay attention, church members. Pay attention, Christian. Excuse me, to what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're teaching, and what you're letting others around you watch and listen to. See, the devil's pretty sly. He's going to make it look really good. He's gonna make it look really fun. It's gonna make it very inviting to take part in this. We don't want to get caught up in that. Let's stay close to God so we'll know the difference. To fight the demons that are alive and well in the world today. But I can't stress to you enough how when these demons are turned loose and this 200 million man army is turned loose, God's going to have the last say-so on what happens here. And I'm so glad. I'm glad I won't be here. I know some people that if something doesn't change, they're going to be here. And that's the scary part. Thank you again for listening to me. I know that there's a lot more to these that could be talked about, and a lot of better minds than myself that could talk about them. But for the sake of time, we're gonna leave it with what we have today. And again, I thank you. Let's close in prayer. Lord, again, we are thankful for the opportunity to look into your word, the promises that are there, Lord, the warnings that are there as well. Help us to understand this scripture as Christians so that we can share your gospel message to those who are going to need it, ones that will have a chance to come to know you before it's too late. And the prayers of many people have said before it's everlasting too late, and that's so very true. Lord, I thank you for the availability that we have to record our lessons and our sermons. I thank you for Brother Mike and the messages that he has delivered to us. We do look forward to a day when we can be together again. It'll still be different in some ways, but we'll enjoy the fellowship that you allow us to have. Help me as we study more of these lessons that you'll open them up to me. And we ask all this in Jesus' name.